Jim, another topic here that a lot of people have sent in a question about. I wasn't sure how much involvement you would have had with him, so I'll ask it here. Sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Brian in Florence, South Carolina. What are your memories of Corporal Kirshner?
Absolutely none. Never met the guy.
That was what I was thinking. I don't think you'd ever would have met him.
Yeah, I've obviously had seen his work, you know, from the AWA.
From the AWA?
Or was it where was he? I'm sorry, shit. Let me try that again. From the WWF when he was Corporal Kirshner, and I had seen where else he did something else in the United States. I thought at one point, where was it? Was that the only run he got in the U.S. was in the WWF, or did he do something else? Maybe his Northeast Independence?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of quickly got the role. He was a job guy as R.T. Reynolds, and I think from what I recall, like quickly from him being a job guy, he got the Corporal Kirshner gig, because that's when Vince fired Sergeant Slaughter.
That's right.
Because Slaughter signed the G.I. Joe deal and wouldn't kill it, and Vince says, I have the Hasbro deal, all of my LJN. I have the LJN deal, all of my wrestlers are exclusive to me, and Slaughter said, no, I'm not, and Vince said, you're fired. And he went to go main event the Meadowlands show for Pro Wrestling USA short time after that. But he needed another one of those characters, an all-American military guy, and dropping in like the parachuter that he was supposed to be. Corporal Kirshner showed up, and look, he wasn't Sergeant Slaughter on the mic or in the ring or anything else, but surprisingly, he got over pretty well, I have to say, I think.
Yeah, and that's what I remember. I misspoke, said the AWA, but the WWF, the Corporal Kirshner, for what, a year or so thereabouts. I saw some of it. I know he worked in some of the Japanese indie companies as, you know, one of the masked gimmicks when they did the deathmatch stuff. I never saw any of that. So I'm not, you know, I have no opinion of the guy, honestly, because he was not in the business that long. I never met him and didn't see a lot of his work.
Who were the most successful guys to pick up a gimmick after someone left? Like, we saw it not work around the same period of time, short time later, with CV Afi.
I was about to say Superfly CV Afi.
They debuted him. I don't know if it was the debut, actually, but they had him in Madison Square Garden, where Jimmy Snuka was bigger than anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I've always been puzzled by the music choice. They played the theme from Shaft. Now, you would think if the guy's name is Superfly and for some reason you're going to blaxploitation films.
Yeah, you're going to play Superfly.
They played the theme from Shaft, which I don't understand why.
Do you think it's because Vince was racist and he thought all those blaxploitation theme music sound alike?
Well, then I think we're all lucky it wasn't Rudy Ray Moore. But the music hits, and that was still the time where music itself got a big pop.
Yeah.
And then
somebody special's coming. Everybody doesn't get music.
And you hear Finkel, and you could go back. The video's out there because you could hear the audio. The audio's the story.
I remember hearing
He goes,
this.
From the Fiji Islands, and the music's playing, and you hear that crowd like, oh, what, Fiji Islands? Superfly! And the place explodes so that they don't even hear him say, CV Afi! And then CV Afi runs out into the biggest pop of his life. And quickly people realize he's half the size of Snuka and doesn't have any of the muscles, and it's not Snuka, and this sucks. It's one of the funniest things.
It goes from the punk pop in Chicago to fucking farting in church by the time he gets in the ring and gets to the turnbuckle, right? I remember that because I got the tape when that happened. That's why I was still getting all the, even though I'd got, that was what, 82-ish?
No, that was 86.
Was that 86? Okay, well then I definitely was getting tapes because I was already in the business. And I didn't watch a lot of WWF, but I saw that, and it was fucking remarkable because you could just tell the people were like, oh, he's back. Oh, he's not. And but you asked about picking up gimmicks.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, close to home, I hate to have to say this and make it sound like everything's about me, but switching Dennis Condrey for Stan Lane in the Midnight Express and actually not only not missing a beat, but actually continuing on for the same amount of time as a team that Dennis had been with the team is almost unheard of. And probably never been done on that level ever again, I don't think. You can suggest something. The new Midnight Express didn't work. The new Fabulous Ones, Tommy Rich and Eddie Gilbert, didn't work in Memphis.
All the new Junkyard Dogs.
The new Junkyard Dogs, or under dissimilar names, but the same basic premise. The new Superflies, the new Road Warriors is anytime it was a Road Warrior clone. I mean, obviously Demolition worked in WWF, but then the real Road Warriors didn't work in WWF like they did everywhere else because Demolition had been there. I'm trying to think of a successful continuation of a gimmick with another person that was successful besides Dennis Condrey for Stan Lane. And
they had the issue, I mean, this is a minor one, I'm thinking out loud, but when they were actually over and Vince was really into it, when they had the Hillbillies of Hillbilly Jim, Uncle Elmer, and I think first was Cousin Junior.
Cousin Junior, Lanny Keene was first.
And then Cousin Junior left and they got Cousin Luke.
Gene Lewis. But that wasn't, see, here's the thing. The nature of it from the start with the Hillbillies was it's a family. There's a bunch of them. That's not like just taking another person and putting them into the same gimmick that a single guy had like Snuka, or a replacing member of a tag team, or taking two guys and giving them a previous tag team's gimmick. The family thing, they could kind of bring in, like the Dudleys in ECW. Paul Lee knew what was going on. He could bring in any of them and it kind of worked because it was a never-ending family.
All right.
But I can't think. It's just, that's the thing is, I mean, even in the movies, which people even in those days knew was, supposed to be all make-believe, and it's a movie and these are actors and etc. People lost their shit when James Bond wasn't Sean Connery. It was, well, that one time George Lazenby.
One movie.
1967. Yeah. Diana Rigg saved that fucking movie.
Yes, she did.
But they lost their mind when Roger Moore took over. It's hard to change. And I mean, Tarzan, there was never really a Tarzan in the movies after Johnny Weissmuller for 30 or 40 years, until people just forgot that there were Tarzan movies to begin with and they started doing them over again. Once you've established yourself as kind of iconic in a particular role, it's hard to get people to accept, well, look what happened when Curly had the stroke and Shemp had to join the act.
Yeah.
I mean, he was great in his own way, but still he was following up Curly. It didn't have the oomph. So you can always try to do something new. You can never really follow someone in the same genre that's done that and been identified with it.
And Curly to Shemp is nowhere near as traumatic as Shemp to Joe Besser.
Oh!
What I was going to say is the worst one, the one that even if you try and think, what were they thinking in that moment? It just seems like it was such a bad idea, was the new Fabulous Ones.
Yeah.
Especially with those two. Nothing against either, but Eddie was one height. Tommy was another height. Eddie was in one shape. Tommy was in another shape. They didn't look like a tag team. And it was the Fabulous Ones who had just been established as a legendary all-time team. And all of a sudden you just throw two guys in the role. That was one of the worst.
And people are going, well, now, why the hell did that take place? Stan Lane and Steve Keirn had left to go to work for Vern Gagne for a fairly large sum of money. And which had to be a fairly large sum of money because I know what they were making in Memphis, but Memphis business had gone down by that point, and they had been there for a number of years. So they gave notice to Jerry Jarrett, and he was not happy because he had not only created the gimmick, and let's face it, Stan and Steve had both been in the territory and both been used and both been fairly successful, but not all-time record levels of we'll remember you forever successful until they became the Fabs, because Jarrett had the idea. Jarrett gave them the rub from Fargo. Jarrett gave them the push, and then they take off. So he's like, well, fuck, I can do it with anybody. And I think he got Fargo to go along with the first few weeks of it, right? And they kind of buried Lane and Keirn, as Fargo had put a line in his original introduction promo of the fabulous ones saying, I've found two guys that can carry on the legacy of me and Donnie and Roughhouse. If they ever don't do what I tell them to do and they betray my teaching, then I won't have anything to do with them. But I know these are the guys. Well, that foreshadowing was because the original idea was they were going to switch heel on Fargo and I was going to be their manager. And thankfully, for all the reasons we've talked about, that didn't happen because I wasn't ready for it. It would have killed the hottest babyface team in fucking territory history. But they used that as part of the story to say why there were new Fabs, because the other ones went against my teachings, and Andor, I think, left the fans here, and it was always about the fans here in this area. So that's why they put the new team together. But it just, people farted at it. Tommy Rich had been a sex symbol in Atlanta in 1980, but he looked a lot different 5 years later, and the world had changed. And they'd seen Lane and Kern. So next to Lane and Kern, Tommy and Eddie weren't pussy magnets. They were pussy anchors. It was just, no, it wasn't going to, no. And so it ran for a couple months, and they ended up turning Eddie heel, and that's when Eddie really took off as a single heel, breaking out of, so it did some good for somebody, but that was a really bad gimmick. Not a good idea.